Hi, this is Anil Kapoor, and here in front of me is this beautiful, beautiful Shreya, whom I have the honor of interviewing. Where are you from?
I was born in Calcutta, but I think kind of all over India.
All over India. And you studied in Calcutta?
I studied in Dehradun.
Dehradun.
In a boarding school.
So you born in Calcutta, you studied in Dehradun?
Yeah. So I was in a boarding school.
Okay.
Ma is from the northeast and Baba is from UP. That's where the Dube
So you did your entire schooling in Dehradun?
Yeah.
And then? Did you go to university?
I got lucky because I kind of figured out where and what I wanted to do. So I then did a year in Bombay in mass communication, and then went to Australia, Melbourne, and studied photography, experimental cinema.
Okay.
Then France, Paris, I did cinematography and direction.
Okay. So do you remember as a kid how, when, where this instinct came into you that you wanted to be what you are today?
I think I definitely always gravitated towards creativity. I mean, like the extracurricular activities, So, because I wasn't really an academic kid. So naturally, definitely, I was kind of leaning more towards that. But when I was in school, I picked up the still camera.
Okay.
And there's, the class 12 girls could have like an exhibition, a photography exhibition. So I borrowed my dad's camera and shot the girls around. And
Dad had a camera?
My dad had a camera that time we saw Yashika. I think it was a Sony.
Sony, okay, cool.
Strange Sony one.
Let you use it or you used to steal it?
I used it but kind of broke it.
Broke it, okay.
Maybe the first and last camera I ever broke.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, very nice. We'd like to share it with you and let you use it,
Yeah.
Which is, when did you first take your still, or when was that and what was it and where, started
How did it evolve?
Yeah.
I think that I got very lucky because my mother introduced me to a really good photographer called Pablo Bartholomew. He won the Padma Shri and all.
Okay.
So I trained under him as a photographer and understood social documentation, I mean, there was a part of me that wanted to be a war photographer. I wanted to do something kind of hectic, There was always that interest in kind of capturing social documentation, like photojournalism. So I learned like that on the streets, kind of photographed dabbawalas and fishermen and the Koli villagers and stuff like that,
You were always arty types?
हाँ, थोड़ा बहुत, आपके बेटे जैसा.
अच्छा, good. And you used to process and develop and everything yourself?
हाँ जी.
And blow them up, or you used to give it to some professional to do it?
In India, we didn't have the luxury of having a lot of these dark rooms that were available to us. But I was fortunate enough to study in Melbourne where we had a dark room.
Okay.
So it was incredible, One could develop, process, print, understand. And it was an incredible learning for me because I understood like negative, how light affects an image, etc.
And then, which was the first moving film you saw on the big screen, and what inspired you? Who was the filmmaker? Were you aware of the great cinematographers of the world? Were you into world cinema? What was it? What really motivated you that you wanted to take this as a profession? Do you remember any film?
I remember being obsessed with cinema, definitely. Because also in the 80s and early 90s, that was also kind of the only form of entertainment that we were exposed to, in our country.
Okay.
I think that what happened was my love was through photography. It kind of went into cinematography because I didn't even know about this particular job, which is like shooting moving image. So I was lucky enough to have a distant aunt who was a photo curator who saw a lot of my still photographs and said that your images kind of make sense in triptychs when they're in motion. So when there are 3 images, somehow that kind of tells more of a story than one particular frame. So then she said, why don't you think about moving in images, cinematography, since you think so much in motion, So that was a really great piece of advice that I got, because that's when I kind of went into trying to kind of do a little bit more research as to like, what's this job, where can I study, is there a particular school that I can go to that specializes in this, etc. And it was really great to just be outside the country and also choose the countries I kind of wanted to be, where I could be exposed to different sorts of arts.
Okay.
Not only cinema, like studying in France was really good because I had like exposure to great music, Western classical music, beautiful paintings, art, photography, Western cinema. You know,
And how did you get into,
Cinema.
cinema? See, why I'm asking you is
Hanji.
because the first film which I saw, which Harsh introduced your work to me, was Cat Sticks.
Hanji.
Correct? So that was shot in Calcutta.
That was shot in Calcutta.
So was that your first film?
Yeah, that was my first feature film.
First feature film. First feature film. How did you get that film? What was your experience shooting in Calcutta? And how did it happen? What was the budget of the film?
Yeah.
How did you all,
Create it, really.
created that? Yeah.
I think that I met Ronnie years ago because he's a photographer himself. So it was really good to kind of sustain these relationships that we formed when we were like all growing up, really.
Right.
And he understood that I had a basic understanding of shooting in black and white. And I think maybe I was the only cinematographer Ronnie knew. So he approached me, and then we were all under 30. So we just kind of, I think, got a crore or something and made this under that.
Enough.
At that time,
Crores is quite a
भगवान,
bit, yeah,
मतलब
yeah.
Alexa मिल गया वही काफी है 15 दिन के लिए,
Correct,
you know.
correct.
I definitely feel, for me personally, it was easier to shoot in black and white than color. I was more focused on textures and tones, more than the color, like I think that the production design and the costume designers, we worked really well together to understand the importance of red. Because in post, I can kind of play and create the red into something like very dark, which is black, or all the way to a gray. I can kind of manipulate the tone. If you see the black and white image, in the color image, it's like, it doesn't make sense. But when you're shooting in black and white, I think it's more focused on highlights and shadows, And also the kind of lights you use, it doesn't matter because it's not about the color temperature, but it's about the intensity of it. Especially because for us, it was like a very low budget film. So sometimes I was just lighting with bulbs and Fresnels and halogen lights. And there was not a single HMI on set, So in that way, it was really interesting because I was, while making an independent film, we just used possibly anything that's available to us, fire, flame, bulb.
So I saw Cat Sticks and I just loved what I saw, and not that I have got great knowledge about it, but I just go with my instinct. I've grown up watching films, and that's my education. So when I saw it, I felt there is something which is special. And then I think from there, I think Harsh just took over.
He's a good producer.
He's a good producer. So then, of course, Thar came about. What did you do to make Rajasthan look so different from all the other films? What was there in your mind? Because Rajasthan, when you talk about Rajasthan, you think about the landscape of J.P. Datta films, for Indians.
Or Lamhe.
Or Lamhe, of course, yeah. And Reshma aur Shreya.
Yeah.
These are the three films which come to your mind. Reshma aur Shreya, which was shot by Sunil Dutt, who directed the film. Phenomenal scenes of Rajasthan. Rajasthan looked something special. We as youngsters, because that was supposed to be a very, very...
sand dunes.
Sand dunes. It was something very arty that time. And then it's a film where Amitabh was introduced, Reshma aur Shreya. And then there is all J.P. Datta films we used to shoot only in Rajasthan. And of course, Lamhe, where I was also part of Lamhe, and I shot in Rajasthan.
And I think even Virasat.
No, Virasat was not...
Was not Rajasthan?
Can you believe it? We created Rajasthan in...
And it was bizarre because it was always perfect light.
It is. That's what a director, a production designer and a DOP can do. This is one of Ravi Chandran's first films.
Yeah.
So we created Rajasthan in Pollachi, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Coimbatore. So coming to your, what did you do to make Rajasthan the way it looked?
Since Raj was from Rajasthan, I think he had a very clear idea and a vision as to how he wanted to focus on things that are not very cliche about his state, So we steered away and moved away from sand dunes and went into the more interior parts of Rajasthan, which was rough and gritty and was, it was a period piece. It was based and set in the 80s. So most of the locations that we found, and we spent a lot of time doing that, recceing, was always about, like, say, 2-3 hours away from anything which was, close to a city, quite far away. So I think recce's and location recce's were really important. I think that it was great that a lot of the grittiness and roughness was written in the script. So it was important for us to establish that it's a difficult terrain where this film is set, you know.
हम लोग जो होते हैं रेकी नहीं बोलते थे, हम लोग
क्या
चलो
बोलते थे?
लोकेशन देखने जाते हैं. Location. Reiki and walkie-talkie and
Yeah.
all these came
Later.
much later.
I think a location scout initially is what the core team goes for, and we try to find the world that the script is situated in, you know. It's really crucial. It's also a great time for different heads of department to get to know one another, for all of us to be aligned with what the director wants, because of course he or she is the captain of the ship, and they know the world that they want to create, you know. And then eventually we come back, which is something like a tech recce, where all the different technical departments and heads of technical departments arrive, and we figure out how to kind of technically create and make this film, you know. So we had the luxury of going twice and sometimes even I think thrice, because COVID hit in the middle.
Yeah.
And we had
That really helped, I think.
Yeah, and we had an
were
incredible
lucky.
location manager, so it was really crucial for us to find like very surreal, incredible, important areas of Rajasthan that haven't been shown.
As a
in
matter of
Indian
fact, I've
cinema.
been to Rajasthan so many times, Shreya. And there are certain locations which I saw for the first time, and the entire team did a great job. And there was certain historic, like we went to this village which is almost 200 years old.
Which is why I think you could see it in Thar. You could see that, you know, we had spent a lot of time finding something very particular that this film could be based in. What was interesting is I remember when we were figuring out the color palette of Thar, I remember the first time we went back to that village, which you said was 200 years old. I was looking around to see what were the shades and colors that exist in that land.
Correct.
And then we fed off that. Like I remember there was like an onion pink flower, there was rust, there was brown, there was dull green, it was raw, it was dry. And that's what we kind of fed off that. And Priyanka and Vasik Saab and I, we kind of discuss where we can do, you know, what shades can, you know, be included within the film. And of course, you know, Raj had to okay it for it to be kind of desaturated, more of the Western tones, you know. And once he said okay, I think that was why it was a very brave move and everyone was aligned. You know, I can't really necessarily work with Raj separately and create like a color palette of the film. I mean, I think costume design and production design and camera team has to work really well together, you know, to create that kind of texture and light, you know. Then we moved away from like costumes of like Gota and Bandhani, you know, we wanted to steer away from everything cliche.
No, absolutely. I think color palette I was like, just giving an example, the clothes which were there, everybody who wore the clothes, it was very, very, you know, it was not very
It was
thought
controlled,
out, including the cigarettes, which
It
I
was
was,
stained.
which I was, obviously that's one of the reasons I got a bad throat every time I smoked those cigarettes,
really?
thanks to you.
No.
Yeah, thanks to you, because you wanted, you know, because the cigarette covering and the paper is white, but you made the paper brown, and that was very bad.
It was so nice.
Why did you
though.
do this? Yeah.
But you looked so great in the
I
opening
know.
sequence.
Yeah.
It was
But I had to
fun.
pay price. Yeah.
You know, it was really beautiful that that prep was so well done, at least for my team and I, and kind of we figured out, because there was not much electricity in this film, in the sense it was based in the 80s, like in the interiors of Rajasthan, so there wasn't electricity in these villages, you know, other than Surekha's house and the police station were the only times we kind of used
Lights.
bulbs, you know.
Bulbs.
Otherwise, it was lighting with fire. So I think that what I'm kind of most happy with in this film, other than you know, your incredible acting, is the fact that I was really kind of content with the texture that we were able to create through lighting, you know, and the moods and the colors and the tones that differed from, say, Fatima's house compared to Harsh's hotel room or your home. Like, I think it was important for me to also maybe not fall back on the cliche Lalten fire vibe, but create a different tone and color for, you know, the way villages are lit in our Indian cinema.
Right.
Or like how moonlight is, you know. It's not blue necessarily. I think it's kind of like daylight, but at night, you know.
So, you know, I just want to ask you a very question,
Hanji.
which always comes to my mind. You know, there are certain DOPs who really don't care about faces. Okay. They are interested in the frames, and there are certain DOPs, whatever knowledge I have, who create beautiful frames and even light up the faces beautifully. Are you one of those DOPs who also believes in the landscape is as important as the faces, or
Oh,
you,
for
yeah,
sure,
or
for
the background is
sure.
more important than the foreground? What is it?
I think it has to be a perfect balance of both. I was very lucky to kind of watch Declan Quinn light Suitable Boy, and it was a series with so many different faces and so many different actors, in the same frame. So it was very interesting to see, and I learned a lot from him to understand and study the face of the actor, and the geometry of it, the bone structure, and see how you kind of light different faces and how different lenses affect that particular face, So once I kind of understand the strengths of that particular face and how I have to approach it, it's already something that one is constantly thinking of, and that's something I hope to do in prep, And I think it's really exciting, depending on the character, to focus on how much of the face you want to show and what you want to keep in shadow and what portion of it you would want to lighten. That's something I did with Harsh because he has such a beautiful face, and for him to, I think it assisted to bring out the evil or the mystery of this actor or this character, depending on how much kind of shadow I played with and what portion of his face I wanted to light, So I think that's something, depending on the actor and the character, you kind of find a beautiful balance between it.
But do you usually, do you do short breakdown? Do you do storyboard? What makes you decide on a certain framing?
Definitely, it's really fun to do short breakdowns. Ideally, what happens is that the director does his short breakdown or her short breakdown, and I do mine, and then we eventually marry together. And then once you arrive on set, it's really lovely to kind of feed and pivot according to the situation, or what the blocking with the actor is, or how you move within a space, or what the emotion and the script requires, So it's nice to break away from these short breakdowns too, but it's good because then the first AD knows how long it could take to do a particular scene, and what is the exact coverage that is needed for the edit.
Coming to grading, that's become a very important aspect because of digital age.
Yeah.
So, how much, because our grading of Thar was phenomenal, absolutely.
Aye,
The
thank
grading
you.
was terrific. So, how involved are you, and what do you do when you're there? You're there for each and every frame when you sit and
Yeah, I
grade.
hope so. I mean, I love the control I have on the image in post. I think I don't really work with LUTs, but I think that it's really lovely to be able to have as much control on the color and texture in the image in pre-production and in camera.
Okay.
So by the time I arrive in grade, firstly, my colorist, Sid Mir, who I've been working with since I was 25, is already aware of the kind of direction we want to go in, And then once we arrive there, we play with contrast levels, brightness, highlights, shadows, grain, grit, etc., color tones, temperature, and see what we want to arrive, the mood that we want to achieve. And then it's extremely fun, to be able to work on the sophisticated image towards the end of it, once the sound, everything is done, and then to add that extra layer of just the balance of colors and tones,
Okay. You won this Asian
Academy Award.
Asian Academy Award, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, very prestigious.
It was fun.
It was fun. One of the most prestigious awards, and we're very proud of you.
Don't you think that in the last, say, 10, 15, 20 years, Indian cinematographers and their work have kind of come at par with the rest of the world? It's interesting to see technically how we are as good as as the rest of the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
And there's a lot of respect now suddenly given to our department, which
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it existed earlier. Do you feel that it has changed over the years? Or?
Completely changed.
Huh?
Completely changed. Yeah.
In what way?
Completely changed. Except for a few of them, there were some phenomenal DOPs who were respected, like Mathur Saab, who did Mughal-e-Azam, Radu Karmakar, who did
amazing.
all films of Raj Kapoor Saab, all the DOPs, director of photography, who made all Gurudutt films look the way they look, so real and so beautiful. And so these are the DOPs which I remember who are masters. Who are the DOPs, director of photographies, cinematographers which whom you admire, who you feel have been in Indian films? This is, who have done great, visual photography, the background, and lit up the faces also beautifully.
Santosh Sivan,
Yeah.
obsessed with him.
I'm lucky
you know.
to have worked with him. Yeah.
And incredible control on manipulating daylight.
Okay.
I think that was really kind of amazing. And I find him, even though he is a visual storyteller, and of course he kind of creates frames that move the story forward, but there is also a layer of emotion. There is some sensuality, there is something that emotion that kind of eventually is influenced by either the actor, the color, or the light, etc.
Okay.
I think Siddharth Devan is a very talented guy and really beautiful, and I love his work and love his frames. But
Who are the directors you would like to work with?
in the world?
In the world, in India?
In India, it's such a tough question, sir. I would love to work again with Meera. I think that she's an incredible captain of
Will
the
you
ship.
suggest my name also?
Always. I think we have.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
My sister.
Apart from?
I think Karishma Dev Dube is a force
That too you already told me that you
reckon
have.
with. My sister is a director, very different strengths, very
Bit Two,
academic.
right? You
Hanji.
both made this film Bit Two.
Yeah.
Which was almost...
Made it to the Oscars.
Absolutely. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. And we won the Student Academy Award.
Yeah.
सर
इंग्लिश
आम धाम तताले साडिन की कट्टी
बहुत हो गया चलो सीधा प्रिंसिपल के ऑफिस में
जब तक तुम सॉरी नहीं बोल देते तुम्हारा आज का खाना बंद सुना तूने
I love working with my sister. I mean, I think I'm very lucky to have someone on my side of the fence, in my family. But also it's, I love the way she sees the world and how she focuses on different details, even if her and I are in the same situation.
Yeah.
So it's really nice that we kind of can arrive from different point of view and kind of make a piece of work. And I kind of love working with children. I think there's something absolutely kind of beautiful and raw, and something like what Rani, who played Bittu, it was really amazing. I think that there wasn't much of an opportunity for us there because we had only 6 days of shoot and not much money. And, when you're working with children, you don't really know you've got it till you've got it, because you can't kind of push a probe and, make things happen in the way you want them to or with adults. So I think it was a very difficult shooting process. I'm glad Karishma, my sister, and I had like a shorthand and we kind of understand each other so well that there wasn't much conversation between the director and me, but it was more focused on getting the day, completing the day, getting the job done, of actually focusing all our energies on the children in front of us. So I think that was a massive learning process for me. But I think that Rani may be one of the best actors I have ever had the luxury of working with. There is something beautiful. I hope I can make more films with children,
So I want you to really say something, how general people who are watching, hopefully they're watching this interview,
Yeah.
how do they
appreciate a good camera work?
A good camera work, yeah.
I think a lot of people believe that the most efficient and effective camera work would be where you don't really feel the camera, but you're so deep into the storytelling aspect of it that everything, all departments are seamless. And like the lines are invisible, But there are some projects which are more mood driven, they're more, say, experimental in the sense like, they focus more on the visual aspects of it and it's less verbose, So I suppose at that time, it's a different kind of a style of storytelling, But otherwise, I think it's really important to be able to kind of blend in, hustle and meet interesting people, make your crew, find the right people you want to do work with. There were a good 10 years where I was, struggling and was not a part of the real industry because I never worked as an assistant to a cinematographer, you see. So my way into this was to be able to generate my own body of work. And for that, I think, it's important that while you are, trying to find something that kind of pays your bills, you have to create a good reel for yourself. So if that means that, you find a good director or a friend who you can make documentaries with and actually practice your craft, that's important, because we can't be really sitting on our asses and dreaming about making films. You have to actually do the work. I think it's important to keep shooting, keep photographing, find something which is easily accessible to you and keep practicing your craft, because that's the only way you'll become better at what you do. I think instead of sitting around and feeling sad that no one's hiring you, it's important to generate your own work, even though it may never see the daylight. I think it's really crucial to keep practicing and understanding light, looking at it, looking at faces, observing. I think these are very important things. If you can't smell pictures, you cannot make them. It's really important to have all your senses alive all the time.
Thank you.
Thank
you so
you,
much.
sir.
Hope to see you soon.
Yes.
And in front of the camera.
Yes.
Right? Me in front of the camera.
Yes, and me
you
behind
behind the camera. And let's create some art once
I
more.
can't wait.
Yeah. Thar 2?